Hello. You are listening to the No Brainers Empowering Possibilities Show. Dialogues of encouragement with fresh perspective, invitations to ahas, a little bit of science, a dash of behavioral psychology, and a whole lot of creative fun. So if leveling up is on your radar, my friend, you are at the right show. I'm your host, Roseanne Marsh. I'm the author of the Teen and Parent Empowerment Curriculum, Level Up. And you are listening to episode number 15, Shine a Light on Your Fear. With all the difficult emotions that we face now, how many of them have fear at the root? And where in our life is fear running a program that holds us back from moving forward or going after that dream or even surviving in this tumultuous world? Imagine your world if you could shine a light on your fear and eliminate some of the blocks that are getting in the way of clarity and living with a level of peace. Well, my friend, this episode is for you if you are experiencing fear in your life and want some tools, or 2, if you are curious as to where fear might be hiding in your life, or 3, if you don't want to know what your relationship to fear is. Is it a friend? Is it a foe? Or is it fuel? So what would your life look like if you didn't have those fears? Or if your fears were diminished, wouldn't it be helpful? There are so many different forms of fears. There's all the way from fears to phobias. There's even like omphallophobia, a fear of belly buttons. There's nomophobia, which I think we all have. That's the fear of being without our mobile phones. There's ergophobia, fear of work. Decidophobia, fear of making decisions. Phobophobia, fear of phobias. But we're not going to solve the fear of our belly buttons tonight. But I do hope that we'll have some suggestions that you're going to find useful. You know, fear was something that we thought was kind of fun when I was little because we would watch something called nightmare theater. Now, if some of you are familiar with Goosebumps, if you've read the books or saw the movies, you'll know it was a little bit like that. And so we would gather on Friday nights and we watch this nightmare theater. Well, we'd watch people in these different scenarios and they'd be sitting there and they'd go, oh, there's something in the basement. I'll go down and look. And they'd go down by themselves. Or they'd be out in the woods and they'd hear something out in the trees and go, I'll go investigate. And we're looking at each other like, what? Are they crazy? Why are they going by themselves? And so we decided that we came up with a little saying. I know it seems a little kind of crazy, but we'd say, you deserve to die, because their response was so ridiculous in the face of what might be danger. So we would laugh every time a scenario would come up and we go, ha, 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 you deserve to die. But truth be known, we were afraid. We had sweaty palms, our armpits were sweaty, and we were afraid. So physiologically, we were responding to a very fake scenario, right? But there was that enticement to be able to see these different scenarios and how people were reacting to fear. So what exactly does fear do to us physiologically? When we're put in a situation of fear and something frightens us or terrorizes us, our bodies are pretty spectacular at trying to keep us out of a situation. As soon as you feel fear, the amygdala, which is a small almond-shaped organ in the middle of our brain, sends a signal to your autonomic nervous system. From there, you can switch to the parasympathetic system to calm yourself down. Or you can ramp up that sympathetic system and the alarm bells go off. And then there's a wide range of effects, right? The sympathetic system kicks in and suddenly your heart rate increases, your blood pressure goes up, your breathing quickens, and then those stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol are released. So, and then the body functions that aren't critical are shut down. Like if you have to scale a wall from a rogue dog or you're facing a group of bullies at school, your digestive system is shut down because you don't need that right then. And you're not even hungry. Have you ever lost your appetite when you're stressed? Well, those stress hormones are preparing us for battle. These hormones are pretty miraculous. So do you remember those stories you may have heard about women who were with children that were trapped under a car, that they were able to lift the car to save the child with those Herculean strength? So when adrenaline courses through our body, we are given a strength or endurance we didn't even know. How amazing is that? So I am so grateful for the fast reaction of the body when I need to react. But some of our fears aren't real and we misconstrue them. And some of them are very real. So, but when they are misconstrued or not real, or they're stressors that we face every day, day in and day out, keeping our body in that state of cortisol and adrenaline is disastrous. Not only does the blood pull from the internal to the extremities, but our brain basically shuts down as the body prepares for action. The cerebral cortex, the brain's center for reasoning and judgment, is the area that becomes impaired when the amygdala senses fear. So our ability to think and to reason decreases as time goes on. So thinking about the next best move in a crisis can be a really difficult thing to do. And some people even experience feelings of time slowing down and tunnel vision, or feeling like what is happening is not real. So these things can be happen when we're just in stress. So it doesn't serve us to be in a state of fear unless we're truly in danger. Some fears are real, and those real dangers deserve our attention. We are given that fight or flight response for a good reason. Our bodies are prepared for those times by taking that blood supply, like we said, from those internal organs to the external to give us that edge we need to survive, gives us that burst, and being able to react to danger truly is a blessing. But some of our fears are imagined. While we don't see, hear, or feel a real threat, sometimes our mind conjures up and creates a story around something and puts our bodies in the same physiological response. So we make them up. We make up the story. Okay, so here's an important part. Remember, your mind does not know the difference between reality and imagination. It can't tell the difference. But the physiological response it's having is as if the fear was caused by something real. And your body is going in this alarm system. So the imagination is very powerful. You can create just about anything with it. I'm going to repeat that again because this is going to be a really important piece. The imagination is very powerful, and you can create just about anything with it. So have any of you ever experienced having a fear that was either misconstrued or imaginary, or you thought something was real and it wasn't? I know I have. So as humans, we tend to react to fear in 5 different ways. You may be familiar with fight and flight. There are 3 others that I want to talk about. Now, this is going to be important because I want you to look at it in a very general scope. And I don't just want you to think of those times when, yeah, I ran away from a dog or whatever. I want us to be able to dig in deep into our life and say, when have I experienced some of these things? So if you've got a pencil ready, maybe you can write down any impressions that come to you. We're not going to be addressing phobias because phobias are some of those fears that maybe need exposure therapy or professional therapy. But I want us to kind of unveil maybe some things that might be interesting for you. So the 5 ways we react to fear. The first way we react is we fight. So it's easy to see what physically fighting looks like, but what could fighting look like in our life also? It could also look like picketing or resisting, or using our words against it, or our emotions against it. So what in your life are you doing that you are fighting against? It's bringing you to a point of fight, because there may be fear at the root of that. The next one is flight. What does that look like? Physically, it could look like retreating, right? What are we fleeing away from? It could also look like avoidance, or I'm not even going to try. I'm getting away from this. So what in your life are you fleeing from? The third one is freeze. We freeze. Now that can look like we're stuck or we're paralyzed. It can also look like procrastination or total indecision. What in your life has freeze with fear at the root. The fourth one is hide. We react to fear by hiding. Now, what does that look like? Physically, it could look like our head down, avoiding any contact, trying to be invisible. But it can be denial, it can be avoidance, it can be fear of failing. So, what in your life are you hiding from? There may be fear at the root of that. The fifth one is defend. What does defend look like? It could look like we are being protective or overprotective. I mean, that could be with your body, or it could be with your intent. It could be with prayer. So, what are you defending in your life? There may be fear, a sort of fear in there also. So, how does that show up in your life? It could be that you're not going for that promotion because fear of not being selected, or feeling like you're not worthy, or they'll find out I'm a fraud if I apply for that job. I just don't have the confidence. Or maybe you're not opening bills that come in the mail because you're having a huge avoidance of finances. And maybe it's that you don't understand them, or you have fear of having to recognize how out of control your life is, or fear I'll look or feel stupid. Stuck has fear threaded all through it. So as we went through those 5, what came to your mind when we went through those? Did you come up with some fears? Because fear is not just fight or flight. So think of the benefits of not having these fears, these situations, these issues in your life. If you could resolve it, what difference would it make? Well, I think it could reduce anxiety and apprehension in your life. We could release fears that are paralyzing us and putting our life on hold. It could produce forward traction. It could improve our relationships. We could get some projects finished, or we could get some projects started. So fear isn't just for the scary. It's the fear of, and when we recognize that, we have a chance to shine a light on it. I love what Zig Ziglar said about fear. He said, fear has 2 meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. So let's explore your relationship with these fears, or things with fear threaded through them. So our relationship can be either a friend, fear is our friend, it's our foe, or it's fuel. And I'm going to say it's all 3. And I'm going to kind of show you what that would look like, and maybe what the invitation is for us. Fear is a friend for us when it's a warning, it's a signal that we might not be safe, that there's a situation we need to pay attention to. Aren't we glad that our body responds to fearful when there is real fear? Fear is a friend because it issues an invitation. And what is that invitation? It's an invitation to pay attention, to dig deeper, to get curious, because where there is fear, there's a story. So it's your friend, and it reminds us to pay attention, to use that Nancy Drew and that Sherlock Holmes detective to get to the root of the fear. Now, it's your foe. It could be your foe when dangers are not real. And then if they're not real, then the concern is that we have our body flooded with that cortisol and adrenaline. And truly, adrenal overload, adrenal fatigue is a real thing that is wearing people out. And when you wear out your adrenal, it's like the power plug was taken out of you. And you don't get that back. We need to be really good to those adrenals. When it's a foe, it's also issuing you an invitation. The invitation is calm your body. So I have 2 tools in just a minute. We're going to talk about that. Then is fear a fuel? Fear is a strong motivator, but it is, if it's fear-based, is it sustainable? Fear could also be a fuel. Fear is a strong motivator, but it is fear-based. sustainable. Fear is fuel to get going is effective. Have you ever used that as a parent on your kids? Okay, I have. If you're not home by 11, your car is gone for a week. It's funny how they get home at 11 when there's that fear of motivation. But when fear is a fuel, long time is not sustainable. So it is also issuing us an invitation. And the invitation is to change the focus. Okay, I want to give you an example of what I mean by that. So if I say, I have to be on work on time or I will lose my job. So fear of losing my job is a good motivator, right? But what does fear do to our body long term? So when we are invited to change our focus, it's an opportunity to change the energy around it. So how about instead, I desire to be to work early so that I can purchase food, hang out with my friends, pay my car bill, blah, blah, blah. The situation is the same, right? The result's the same. But we're training our brain to see that there's an advantage of getting to work early instead of the fear of getting fired. Does that make sense? So when friend is our fuel, sometimes we need, if it's fear-based, we need to change our focus. So changing our focus is a powerful skill. Because sometimes we can't change the situation, but we can change how we're reacting to the situation by creating a solution that our mind can wrap around, a new focus. Let me give you a visual example. We went to a reservoir near us. We decided to spend some time in the fall on the beach. When we went onto the beach, in the vista, you could see the beautiful mountains with the fall leaves, a little bit of snow on the mountains, and there was nobody on the beach, so we decided to put down our chairs. But where we put down our chairs, there was a dead, stinky fish. Now that stinky fish could have ruined our visit for the day. Or we could choose the vista to look up and enjoy that. So we could decide, were we going to be engrossed in the stinky fish that ruined our day? Or are we going to change our view, our focus? Are we going to change what we look at? Our fears are the same. We can live fear-based or we can live life-based. We can focus on the stinky fish or we can focus on the vista. So here's the tools I want to give you. We're going to go back to the invitation of the friend, foe, or fuel, engage. And what are the solutions then? So the invitation was to dig deeper when it's your friend. And we did that by evaluating the 5 ways that we respond to fear. And hopefully you came up with something that made you curious that there's fear at the base. And then you can evaluate that and dig deeper in it. And there's a tool that you can use in just a second. The second was to calm your body. Now we can do that through breath work. Now they had an incredible study and they had people come in and they said, okay, we want you to act as if you're a sad child. And so they were sniffing. Now act like you're depressed. And they were like, now act fearful. It was like a panting up in the lungs. And so there was a breath pattern to every one of the emotions. Well, they brought a second group in. They said, this time we want you to do these breath patterns. And then we were going to ask you to tell us if an emotion comes up with it. So I said, we want you to breathe like this. Well, they were saying, oh, fear came up for me or sadness came up for me. So it was interesting. The breath pattern they were asked to go through actually ended up being the same emotion that the first people had come up with when they said, act sad, act depressed, whatever. What does that tell you? If we can change our breath, then we can change our emotions. So if we're in a state of fear, we can lower our emotions by changing our breath. I've told the story a couple times of when my horse was tied to the gate in a barn. I obviously was not horse owner of the year at that time, but he was thundering and thundering. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to take the gate off and we're both going to die. And there was nobody else in the barn with me. And the feeling came, lower your energy. And so I did long exhale, easy inhale. And I did that several times, and my shoulders would even go down. Well, the minute I did that, my energy lowered and the horse stopped thundering. And then I was able to try to see if I could get his halter undone, and I couldn't. It was tied tight. He started to thunder again. Again, I was given the prompt to lower your energy, and it was like, exhaled out, easy in, exhaled out. And again, he stopped. He tapped into my energy and stopped thundering. And I tried again. He thundered the third time. I did that again, was able to calm him down, grab some scissors, cut off the halter, and realized that by breathing in a different way, I was able to lower my energy, put myself in a calmer place where I could remember where my scissors were and be able to get us out of this crap. Now, there's a reason I'm telling you this, because there's going to be a time when you may be in a situation where you are fearful and you need to be able to get the frontal cortex thinking, because when we go into fear, our frontal cortex is the one that has blood taken away from it, and we aren't necessarily thinking clearly. But by breathing deep and exhale out, easy in, lowering our shoulders, we lower our energy and are able to get into more of a cognitive state. Now, a second way that we can calm our body, probably one of the most effective ways, is music. When we study the effects of different kinds of music on us, if you have a playlist that's calming or motivating to be courageous, that's an immediate mood shifter. If you haven't listened to the episode yet on music, that's a good one for you to go back on. There's some ahas in that. Have a playlist that is readily handy for you for no matter what you are experiencing. Why do we need to shift out of fear? Albert Einstein said, you cannot solve problems from the same mind that created them. If you're in a fight or flight or flee or hide or freeze or defend, your thinking skills are not what they could be to help you make good decisions. Now, the third tool is to change your focus. Fear is because we don't have solutions. When we don't have answers and solutions, we go into fear. So sometimes we have to shine a light on it. Literally, this is some inspiration that came to me on a way that I could shine the light on some of my fears. I'd had some anxiety and fears around some things going on with my boys, to the point I had a sick stomach, I couldn't think, didn't know what to do. And it was like, okay, shine a light on that fear and come up with some solutions. So I'm going to share that with you. And we're going to go through it really briefly in the Level Up Empowering Possibilities. We go through it in much more depth. But hopefully someone out here listening, this is going to give you some peace and some solutions. So if you make 4 columns on your piece of paper, the first column is going to be called Face It. The second column, you can put Shine a Light on it. The third column is going to be Evaluate it. And the fourth one is Think of a Solution. And when you run your fears through this, by the end, you will have some solutions. Now, when I said something about your imagination is really important, I wasn't kidding. Your imagination is powerful. And you can run through this with someone else that can maybe sit down with you to brainstorm. Or you can totally bring in your mind in just closing your eyes and thinking of people you respect. They could be people of the past. They could be people who live now. But imagine if they were there, what kind of advice would they be giving you? The point is, we're going to take a fear and then we're going to run it through a couple different scenarios to come up with more information and then come up with solutions and an action plan so that we don't stay in that state of fear. So I'm going to use an example that was one of our teens that was in one of our summits. The first one was, is the Face It. That is the fear. Right away, what is the fear that comes to mind? That's the raw fear. His fear was, I don't have many friends at my school and I'm going to be lonely forever. That was his fear. So we wrote that down. So we move into the second column, Shine a Light on it. From there, we're like, okay, Let's talk this through with a good friend. Let's have you imagine that you're sitting knee to knee with a really good friend that you trust, and you're talking this over with them. What are the suggestions that they are going to have for you? Now, as he went through meditation and went through this, he was able to extrapolate from this that, well, I have a few friends, but I think really what I'm wanting is I'm wanting more popular friends. So he's able to get that out of it. Now we move into the evaluate. Now let's evaluate that statement. For this, again, use your imagination, or you may even have a group of friends that you want to run this through, people that you absolutely trust and admire. But it could be a committee of a table of people that are from the past, from the present, from whatever, that you bring in and say, I want some information, some feedback on this, and evaluate what that statement, I have a few friends, but I'm really wanting more popular friends. Well, he came up with it. Well, I'm placing my own value on who I hang out with. Who says that more popular means that they're a better quality? So he was able to ask questions from all those people from that committee and be able to come up with that. Now think of a solution from the information that you've gotten. So what are you going to do with the information that you have now? He came up with, I'm going to plan a way to get to know a lot more people. I'm going to volunteer for service projects. I'm going to get involved with after school clubs. I'm going to really get to know these teens, and I'm going to look for their golden qualities. I'm going to surround myself with great people irrespective of their popularity. Now, from a fear he had is, I have very few friends and I'm going to be alone forever. He came up with an action plan with a solution. And I asked him, how do you feel now that you've come up with this? He goes, I feel empowered. What a difference to go from a fear that you have of being lonely to a place of empowerment. Shine a light on our fears. When we change our focus, when we come up with solutions, we diminish fear. An example of changing focus was there was a time when there was an earthquake. It was a 6.5 in our area. And I had just let my earthquake insurance lapse. Oh, and I wondered, oh man, do I need to buy it again? I knew it was going to be really expensive. But as I was pondering and asking, do I do that? The thought came to me, you can be in a safe place and not feel safe. But you could also be in an unsafe place and feel safe. The choice is yours. Is that not powerful? We have a choice. There's a movie out there that I absolutely love. It's called Jacob the Liar. It's one of Robin Williams' more somber roles that he played, but it was at a time when the German war, and he was a Jew among all these Jews, and they had blocked in this neighborhood, and then they had guards all around it waiting for the Germans to come and take them to the concentration camps. And people were getting sicker by the moment. Because they were in so much fear, this doom and gloom of what was coming. And Jacob was played by Robin Williams, was out past curfew, and he was caught and he was reprimanded. But while he was in the German office, he heard on a radio that the Germans were being defeated. So when he was talking to a friend, he said, I heard on the radio the Germans are being defeated. Well, that went out there like wildfire, and the people started finding hope. And so Jacob started pretending that he had radio feeds, and he was feeding them good news. And the people were recovering. And the doctor said, there's never been less sickness since you found the radio. Now, you can watch the rest of it, but what we focus on grows. What we water grows. The mind doesn't know the difference between real and not real. So we can decide, what are we going to water? So there are things out there that are not real, that we have been told are real. And there's things out there that are real that we don't even know about. But where are we going to choose to focus? Because the battle is going to be won or lost in our mind. What do we want to have in our mind? Where's our focus going to be? Is it going to be on that stinky fish? Is it going to be on the vista with solutions and empowerment and moving forward. They say that opposing emotions cannot exist at the same time. Yes, we can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, but one is going to win out over the other. So what's the opposite of fear? It's faith. Faith. I heard that acronym can also stand for fear absent in the heart. When we have tools, when we have a process, when we engage the prefrontal cortex, we are more empowered and we are more fearless. The battle is won or lost in the mind. We need to have control over our thoughts, our words, our emotions, our actions. And empowerment is having the ability to choose, because you know how power over those things. Fear is useful when it's used as a caution, and it's destructive when it keeps us in toxic relationships or paralyzed to move forward. I love this saying, it's courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. In No Brainers, we have a quote that says, anything kept in the dark is scarier and a solution is more difficult to find. It's only when we shine a light on our fears that the solutions begin to appear. I hope that you found something useful today. Thank you for joining in, and we'll see you next week. Remember, we are the creators of our life. Let's create solutions and get rid of the fear. See you later.